All right, so I was sitting in the living room last night and I got to thinking about all these celebrities and people going online and reading stories to people in this time of lockdown, and I got to thinking that'd be great. I would like to do something like that. And so I started looking around at all the books in my collections for something appropriate and family friendly that I could read to you guys. And the closest thing I could come up with was The Alchemist by Paul, and I believe it's called Colo. I'm not sure how to say it. No offense to Paul, but I love this book. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. It is very family friendly for all ages. But then I thought, well, this book is a little long for me to read, and I wouldn't be able to sit and read it in one sitting. And frankly, I didn't want to like break it up and read it a little bit at a time. Um, and so, a lot of you know that I am a writer and author myself. I am the author of Secrets of a Sissy Boy. It is a gay grimoire of modern magic for men who love men and the hags who worship them. But I've also am a co-author of the Hoodoo Almanac, and I am an editor and contributor to Hoodoo and Conjure Quarterly. Now, all these publications I've mentioned are available on Amazon.com. And in reference to the Hoodoo Almanac, I do want to mention, just because this is a 2012 almanac, it doesn't mean that there's nothing in here that you can use because it is now 2020. In addition to this being an almanac of the time that it came out, for the year it came out, like a calendar and moon phases, there's all kinds of articles, formulas, spells, and lots of useful information in these books that you can use at any time. So don't think that just because 2012 was 8 years ago that you can't use these books now in your practices. Okay, but what y'all may not know about me is that I have tried my hand at writing some magical fiction. I have a couple of short stories and poems that I've occasionally shared. And so today I want to share a short story that I wrote with you all. And it's called Man and Starman. And it's a love story. So without further ado, sit back, listen, and y'all can tell me what y'all think, okay? Manitou, or Crowman, was a wise and gifted medicine man. Among his tribe, his Manitou, or spirit power, was considered the most powerful of all Manitous. Stronger than Bear Manitou, wiser than Wolf Manitou, and more clever than Coyote Manitou. For this reason, Crowman was the chosen protector of his tribe. But he was often called upon as more than a protector. As his tribe's medicine person, he was their healer, their magician, their counselor, and their priest. Now Crowman had an enemy. Where Crowman was wise, his enemy, the serpent, was devious. Where Crowman came as a helper to mankind, the snake woman came to destroy him. In each life, Crowman and Snake Woman would come into conflict with each other in one form or another for the fate of mankind. When Crowman was the victor, peace would be upon the earth for one generation until the Snake Woman appeared again in her next life, and the cycle would repeat itself. Conversely, when Snake Woman's victory would be victorious, she would bring war, famine, and disease to the land and death to the people. In this life, Crowman fell in love with a man, which was not unusual, because Crowman had loved both women and men at various times in his many, many lives. But this man, the man that he loved, he was special. Crowman's beloved was a man who studied the stars and sought to travel to them. The love between Starman and Crowman drew the attention of Snake Woman, who despised love and denied love and perverted love to her own ends. And so Snake Woman sought to destroy the Crow Man by destroying all that he loved. Snake Woman knew that Starman and others like him who shared his dream of visiting the stars had built a great spear, a silver spear that could pierce the heavens and touch the stars. Snake Woman sought to turn this spear into a weapon of unimaginable power with which she could destroy not only Starman and Crowman, but all men everywhere. So Snake Woman slithered into Starman's tribe, and by her foul magic counted herself among his friends. Her hatred of mankind was so great that she sought to point the great spear at a tribe beyond the sea, inciting a war in which there would be no winners. Upon seeing Snake Woman, Crowman recognized his enemy, and the battle was joined. Crowman and Snake Woman fought valiantly beneath the great spear, and Snake Woman was cleverly able to launch the spear at the cost of her own life, her body burning up in the fires beneath the spear. Now Crowman, in his wisdom, he knew that his single life was not as important as all the lives of all the people in all the world. And so Crowman embraced Starman and kissed him. "If I don't come back," Crowman began. "Shh," Starman interjected. "Just come back." And then they kissed once more as Crowman melted into shadows, only to appear seconds later as a huge, towering crow made of shadows, and yet glowing with tangible power. So large was this shadowy figure that its wings would span the length of the vast expanse of the canyon in the northern mountains. Starman watched in awe as the crow shadow took to the skies in pursuit of the great spear, flying faster than any bird has ever flown before. The crow shadow clutched the great spear in its mighty claws, and sacrificing himself, carried it into the sun to be swallowed up in its cleansing fires. As his body burned up in the fires of the sun, Crowman's last thoughts were of Starman, and then there was darkness. His remains fell to earth as ashes, where they were scattered by the cold and unforgiving winds that blow without ceasing. Starman waited for many days and weeks for his lost love to return to him, vowing to wait for him always. The grandmothers and grandfathers, they tried to comfort Starman, because they too had felt the pain of loss at one time or another in their own lives, but he would not listen. When 3 moons had come and gone, Turtle Man approached Starman, saying, "Come with me, and let me be a husband to you, and we will share a long life together." But Starman replied, "Would if I could, but I love you not, and better it be that I live out my days alone than with someone I do not love." And Turtle Man bowed his head and slinked away. And when another 3 moons had passed, Bear Man appeared before Starman, saying, "Come with me and cleave to my hairy chest. My strength will be yours, and you will be mine through many winters and many springs." Again, Starman replied, "Would if I could, but I cleave to the memory of another. To him I belong, and I simply cannot give myself to you." And Bearman growled and ambled away. And yet, when another 3 moons had passed, Wolfman came to Starman and said, "Come with me, and we shall run through the hills and the forests with my pack. We shall be brothers and share in the glory of the hunt." And Starman answered, saying, "Would if I could, but you are not my brother, and I have no desire to run through the hills and the forests, because what I seek cannot be found therein." And Wolfman disappeared into the shadows. After all this time, no one would approach Starman again. He became something of a ghost among his people, coming and going in silence, being seen and yet unseen at the same time, neither speaking to nor being spoken to, only spoken of, and only then in whispers. "There goes Starman, poor thing," the sons and the daughters would mutter to one another in hushed tones as he passed by. When Crowman died, he took Starman's soul with him. "Hush," the mothers and the fathers would say, "leave him be." At night, Starman would stand outside and search the skies for some sign of his love, just as he once dreamed of visiting the stars. "Just come back," he would whisper into the darkness, but the darkness did not respond. In time, a murder of crows would gather in the nearby trees and observe Starman as he in turn looked to the heavens. At first there were only a few of them, but their numbers grew each night. One night, the crows came down out of the trees and gathered around Starman. In his pain of grief, the Starman cried out at the crows, "Go away, you damn birds!" But the crows were just as silent as the darkness. With the rising sun, Starman began to make his way home, only to have the crows follow him. At first they simply walked behind him, but when Starman walked faster, the crows walked faster. And so the crows flew around him at a distance, moving closer and closer, swirling about him with the anger and fierceness of a whirlwind, and he was filled with fear. Starman screamed, and once he began screaming, he couldn't stop. It was as if a dam had given way inside of him, and a flood of emotions burst forth out of him. So violent was his screaming that it felt as if Starman's cries came from a place buried deep, deep within his own soul, and all of his anger and grief spilled out of his body in the form of a nebulous shadow. Starman watched as the shadow danced among the swirling crows, seemingly swallowing them up. The shape grew with each crow it swallowed, becoming a large, shapeless shadow, and Starman feared that the shadow would swallow him next. To his surprise, the shadow began to take on a shape, a vaguely human shape, a shape that he began to recognize, the shape of his beloved Crowman. When Starman saw Crowman, he ran to him. They embraced and kissed one another for what seemed like a lifetime. When his shock and surprise began to abate, Starman could only form one word: "How? How?" It was then that Crowman placed his hand over Starman's heart and spoke for the first time, saying, "When last we kissed, I put a part of myself inside of you so that I can find my way back to you again." And seeing that Starman did not understand, Crowman continued saying, "Death could not take me because death could not take all of me. You see, my precious one, it was all of my love that I gave you, which allowed me to escape death and return to you now. And because you endured the loneliest days of your life and never gave up and never gave my love away to another, I am here with you now and always." And so that is the story of Crowman and Starman. I hope you enjoyed this story, and see you next time.